I think the area's concern.
Wells came to Newcastle midway through the season to try to resurrect the Falcons, which had only won one game in the first 13. Following the sacking of Steve Johansson as coach, Wells' employment started to pay off, with the Falcons winning 2 of their next 5 games. However, Wells was signed up only to see out this season and has decided to call it quits when the season finishes in 6 weeks. Favourite to take control of Newcastle next year is Sydney Supersonics coach Ken Cole. Falcons director Warren Skelton would not confirm Cole will be the 1988 coach, saying an announcement will be made on October 1st.
We would be looking to a case to do the complete promotions and bring the game ahead in more directions than one, to get into our junior program and in a full-time capacity, not as a part-time coach. We would want to get into the schools and run the programs and get the younger players coming along, and that's what the board's aiming to do. It's a costly process, but it'll certainly bring out the players, the young fellows, and be beneficial to everybody in the long run.
Costain's No. 2 mine at Ravensworth is one of the oldest and most productive mines in the Upper Hunter. Its 2 drag lines have dug out millions of tonnes of coal. Now the company has decided to link the 2 lines by blasting the 4 million tonnes of rock that divides them.
Well, this will be the largest overburden blast in the Hunter Valley. It comprises some 1.6 million cubic metres of rock, or some 4 million tonnes of rock that will be blasted this afternoon, and that's overlying some 1 million tonnes, which we will extract later.
So this afternoon, using 420 tonnes of explosives and 7 kilometres of surface detonating cord, the 850 metre section of wall was blasted.
4, 3, 2, 1, fire!
The company plans to blast out the rest of the wall eventually, but none will rival today's explosion.
In fact, Dr Ritchie said government charges are strangling his industry, to the point where one mine, Ulan, is idle because of prohibited rail haulage charges. He said virtually every coal producer in this state has developed an interest in Queensland in order to expand, because the government here has a policy of increasing taxes and charges to the point where reasonable returns can't be made. And Dr Ritchie said the state's takeover of coal royalties had removed assets from companies' books, reducing their base for future investment. He described as a political decision the government's prevention of its transfer of the Saxonvale lease from BHP to Newcastle Wallsend, and the effective nationalisation of the industry. Comparing here with Queensland, Dr Ritchie said lease policy is based on ideas over 100 years old, rendering coal in New South Wales a peasant industry.
We all must try to bring to the notice of the state government the fact that if New South Wales industry, including the coal industry, is going to survive and develop, then there must be a fundamental change of attitude on the part of the government. It must provide leadership for change and also for change in union attitudes.
Hello, I'm Ross Hampton. 2 landmarks familiar to all Novocastrians are almost gone. Tonight I'll have a report on the dismantling of the huge gas reservoirs in the centre of Newcastle.
For all the news,
join us tonight
at 6.
This is John Church reporting.
The state government today awarded a 10-year lease on Newcastle's floating dock to Ullman Engineering, but not everybody was happy with the decision, including State Member for Newcastle, Arthur Wade.
For all that is,
Join us tonight
at 6.
During the past 14 years, the Interchurch Trade and Industry Mission has provided chaplaincy to thousands of employees at BHP, Tubemakers, Hunter District Water Board, Comsteel and local councils. At Tubemakers Recreation Club last night, representatives from those industries gathered for the annual Goodwill Dinner, with guest speaker, State Director of ITIM, Reverend Paul Dunn. Reverend Dunn says the 10 chaplains involved in the unique counselling service play an important role in the industrial workplace, one that will be needed in the future.
I think the role is to continue basically to do what we are doing, and that is to be where the people are, to see them where they are working and to stand alongside them in their need. To be able to offer help where we can. Sometimes we may not be able to help, but at least to show that there's somebody caring for them in that context.
Volunteers were called in yesterday to keep the kitchens operating as yet another strike hit the Royal. The 200 HREA members stopped work on Tuesday in protest to the appointment of a contract worker from William Lyne Hospital getting a job over a permanent casual at the Royal. The union wants the procedures for promotions changed, but it says its main priority is the modernisation of the kitchens. Branch Secretary Bill Chapman of the HREA says the improvement would increase morale and decrease the risk of more strikes. He says the despair by many workers forces strike action without going through the correct industrial dispute procedures. Chief Executive Officer at the Royal, Dr Owen James, says that while the kitchens are a concern, the employee priorities should lie with the patients.
Major feature I think that we should look to is a reorientation of all the contributors to healthcare in the Greater Newcastle area, because that's our responsibility, towards patient care, and not career structures, financial considerations being paramount.
By the time firemen had arrived at the Caravan park south of Swansea, residents had rescued the couple from the burning van and its annex. It's believed the fire broke out after a cigarette butt ignited bedclothes. Lord's Wharf Bushfire Brigade quickly brought the blaze under control, but had to use buckets to haul water to the flames. The woman received first, second and third degree burns to 80% of her body and was transported to the Royal Newcastle Hospital by the rescue helicopter. Later, she was flown to the burns unit of Sydney's Royal North Shore Hospital. Her husband received burns to his hands and arms trying to pull his wife from the flames. He was taken to the Royal by road ambulance.
It's the downward trend in the amount of wheat loaded for export that the Grain Handling Authority wants to see reversed. It claims to be at least 400,000 tonnes behind its export target because of poor performance at both the Sydney and Newcastle terminals. Managing Director of the GHA, Vince Graham, says restrictive work practices have been a major cause of that inefficiency. One example of those restrictive work practices is the time it takes to shut the plant down and restart it after smokos and meal breaks. The Grain Handling Authority says that without continuous operation, its plant operates just 5.25 hours per 7-hour shift, and that represents a 27% loss to working time.
After months of negotiations, the Public Service Association and the Australian Workers' Union members employed at the Sydney terminal have agreed to stagger meal breaks and run the facility continuously as of next Monday. The SRA and the MSB have endorsed the plan. Justice Sweeney in the State Industrial Commission says it's the authorities' obligation to run it as efficiently as possible. But in Newcastle, the workers are preparing to stand firm. For the first time, they've called in the Trades Hall Council to intervene in the dispute.
Certainly there's some work practices over there that could be looked at, and they should be looked at within the terms of the second tier of the wages decision. Obviously what the Grain Handling Authority is seeking to do is resolve everything before they go into negotiations around the second tier, and the workers are just a bit concerned about when they get to negotiating their second tier. There's nothing left to negotiate.
This afternoon, 8 men were suspended for not following the authorities' instructions. They are considered on strike and will not be paid. The workers have decided to stay on the job and work without pay if necessary.
If the Grain Handling Authorities seek to resolve this dispute in this manner and shut the place and lock the workers out, then it's on their head, not on the workers, because they'll continue to work.
The 36ers have a few of their own problems going into tonight's game. Daryl Pearce is in Perth for the test match against Russia, while rebounding sensation Mark Davis continues to cause worry with a groin injury. But that's nothing compared to the dramas that surround Newcastle. So much so that their executive officer, Dennis Kibble, says he doesn't expect his side to even get close.
Realistically, the chances are not good for a victory.
Earlier in the season, Newcastle sacked their coach, former 36ers assistant Steve Johansson, and replaced him with Owen Wells. But Johansson says Wells is about to get the chop as well, and the man that'll be the boss up here next year is Ken Cole.
It hasn't been announced, but I don't think it's any secret that he'll be here as of October 1, I'm led to believe.
Adelaide coach Gary Fox steered well clear of the political turmoil. He just wants to get a win under his belt tonight and then head off to Sydney tomorrow morning to make it a road double.
Well, we know we've got to play defence, that's for sure. I mean, they're a fine scoring team. Everett had an outstanding game against us. McDaniels is averaging 30 a game, so we know we've got to play some defence, control the tempo of the game, and be smart. I mean, we're missing Daryl tonight, so we've got to make up for that. Although Michael, I'm sure, will slot into that spot well.
Channel 10 will televise the game in its entirety tonight. Andrew Kay in Newcastle for Eyewitness News.
The 36ers are currently sitting comfortably on top of the NBL ladder and are odds-on favourites to win again this year. Tonight they will be without one of their star shooters, Daryl Pearce, who is training in Perth with the Australian team to play the touring Russians. Last time the Falcons and 36ers met, Newcastle trailed by just 4 points at half-time. They couldn't, however, keep up the pressure and lost by 26. Adelaide are short-priced favourites to win, but coach Gary Fox says they won't be taking Newcastle lightly.
Newcastle has a team with a lot of talent. I think it belies the record where they are in the league, and last time we had them, they gave us everything we could have. It was a real close contest.
Falcons coach Owen Wells agrees that his team is capable of toppling the champions.
One thing about this team, it takes on different faces. It can play with the best teams in the league, and at times it can play with the worst teams in the league.
Do you believe you've had a little bit of bad luck during the year? Do you think a bit of good luck could see you win the game tonight?
Yeah, definitely luck is involved. We'll need a bit. The main thing I think is that we can hit some of the shots that we missed last week. We missed some crucial shots, some pretty easy shots. And we've got to really battle the boards. And we've got to put the whole game together, each aspect.
The Falcons 36ers showdown starts at 8 tonight at the Broadmeadow Stadium. St John Oval looked more like a swamp today. In earlier games, it was almost impossible to tell the difference between the sides in the later stages of those matches. West drew first blood in the 9th minute when winger Peter Chapman scored wide out. Cessnock put its first points on the board with a penalty goal to trail 4-2. West were in again in the 30th minute through fullback Greg Guider. The shot at goal was a shocker, and West looked comfortable as they led 8-2. However, Cessnock's Dominic Levito closed the gap with a good try for West to go to the half-time break leading 8-6. Only 2 minutes into the second half, Cessnock half Mark McLaughlin put the Guanners in front for the first time in the game when, after good backing up, he scored next to the posts. Schofield converted. He also put a penalty over for the full-time score of Cessnock 14, West 8. Tomorrow at Cessnock, South and Lakes clash in the major semi. The winner will go straight to the grand final, while the loser will play Cessnock next Sunday.
Most of yesterday's rain had dried from Harold Park Oval by match time, which meant the teams could play controlled soccer. Hotspurs went into the final as favourites, having much more experience than the Curry side, which only entered the competition last year. However, play was evenly balanced for much of the game, with both teams having chances to score. The competition has been running since 1972, and this year 25 teams from the region entered in the 3 divisions. Women's soccer is a growing force in the region. Macquarie District teams competing recently in the state championships held in Tamworth won the under-15s, under-18s and open-age divisions. Earlier today, West Wallsend defeated Barnsley 3-2 in the 2nd division and Morisset defeated Warners Bay 3-0 in the 3rd division final.
Taro Fire Brigade celebrated 25 years of service to the community with an open day at the weekend. The brigade came into being in October 1962 to provide a firefighting service for the local area. Yesterday's open day was a chance for them to show how it was done, an exercise which was popular with all except those who chose a viewpoint in the path of the smoke. For those who always had the urge to work as a fireman themselves, the opportunity was not to be missed. Perhaps this future firewoman got her first taste of beating a real fire. When the Taro Brigade started a quarter of a century ago, it had only 6 members and a truck very similar to this early model Dennis. Before then, fire trucks from Maitland or Newcastle had to travel the large distance to emergencies in Taro. Last year, the now 12-man brigade answered 241 calls for assistance. Nowadays, the old truck is kept in Newcastle and brought out for special occasions as a glimpse at the past or perhaps an inspiration to future firefighters.
Now don't look at the camera. Keep talking away.
The introduction of 5-day instead of 7-day rosters for Newcastle Harbour foremen is still far from resolved. When foremen declined to work Saturday last, the MSB decided that there'd be no work at all on the whole weekend. And the result? Further interruption to the loading of coal in the port of Newcastle. However, there are to be further talks between the MSB and the union. For all the news,
join us tonight
at 6.
Hello everyone, tonight I'll have a report on the prototype logistics support shelter built for the Australian Army by local engineering firm G.H. Varley. If the prototype is successful, it could mean a contract of about $3 million a year for the local engineering firm.
For all the news,
join us tonight
at 6.
brilliant human being as well.
The film Children of a Lesser God helped generate immense public interest in deafness. American actress Marlee Matlin, who is profoundly deaf, took the hearing world by storm, winning an Academy Award and the heart of co-star William Hurt. Marlee is in Australia as an ambassador for Deafness Awareness Week. Just like her, 1.5 million people in our country suffer from impaired hearing. In Newcastle, many of these people can be found at the Centre for the Deaf at Hamilton. While lip-reading lessons and signing classes are being held throughout the week, today was devoted to fun and games. The television quiz show Wheel of Fortune was used as a model. Mandy McKinnon made the props out of cardboard boxes, and everyone was expected to participate in the word game. The rules were the same as the TV show, except people with impaired hearing seemed to ask much harder questions, questions that required collaboration and were responsible for some heated debates. The theme of the week is access to the community and the facilities it offers hearing people.
Access to normal living, access to be part of the normal community.
Great headway has been made through technology. This telephone allows deaf people to converse by typing. However, it costs $700. The users must also install a standard telephone, pay rent and normal STD rates. Understandably, typing out a conversation takes a lot of time and makes the cost exorbitant. Telecom does not offer any discount on the cost of each call or on the initial installation of the regular telephone. And according to the centre, this cost factor means that only a handful of people in Newcastle can afford to use them. This is exactly the sort of barrier the centre says needs to be broken down.
The bridge received its official blessing back in April, when only 2 lanes taking traffic north were operational. This section was made a priority and finished in time for the Easter rush, greatly easing congestion at the spot this year. Today, a much lower key ceremony was held to mark the real completion of work. John Price, the state member for Waratah, and the acting divisional engineer of the DMR, Phil Gallagher, had the honour of removing the final barricade from the approach ramp. However, it seemed that motorists didn't at first believe that they could finally use it. To get things moving, the DMR dispatched a vehicle, and the traffic soon got the message. The DMR estimates that 15% of traffic from the west turns north at Hexham, and so the new approach should significantly improve the flow. The old Hexham Bridge will now be used exclusively for southbound traffic. The project has been plagued by construction problems, which led to the 1.5-year delay on its completion. According to the DMR, negotiations are now underway with some of the contractors to assess payments they should make for their mistakes. The DMR also does not absolve itself totally of blame.
There are some design problems on the concrete pavement that the department has to and has accepted responsibility for. Some of the other problems are payable by the contractor. We make deductions from the contractor's payments because of late completion of the bridge works, for instance.
No matter who ends up paying for it, one thing is sure. After $26 million worth of work, one of the state's worst bottlenecks is gone for good.